Hey, how's it going, internet? So I was actually on the feed and I was seeing a lot of content surrounding this movie, The Last American Virgin. Apparently, it was an 80s classic I didn't really know existed until today, but I decided to watch some of that content. And then I decided to give the movie a watch because obviously dating, all that kind of stuff is a hot topic online. And this one certainly adds to the trope of the nice guy. You know, we all hear about it. You know, the Chad, the nice guy, the Stacy, all that, the popular girl, the jock, all that stuff. In my real life experience, especially looking back in high school, there were like spheres like that existed where all the popular kids, and then there were the rest of us. And you know what? I think that I had shown some spots where I did relate to Gary, but really only on one note. And that's where like she's trying to set him up with her best friend. And that's like the one thing I was like saying is, you know, I still think that they probably could have been friends in a really odd, weird way because it's not like there was no favor exchange. It just wasn't romantic. But I do remember that, and looking back, you could get so caught up chasing the girl that you do like that you forget that there's a girl that's giving you a lot of attention. Excuse me, not attention. I was going to say potential, but also attention. Excuse me, a lot of attention, and maybe giving her a shot might not have been a bad idea. Now, looking back, yeah, you know, I got so caught up in chasing certain goals when it came to the dating realm that I completely fumbled and lost sight of some ladies who were actually willing to have a relationship with me. And you know what? Looking back, ownership's a good thing. But that also dives into the topic or the main overall point of this video is that, like, nice guys are not really nice guys when put into perspective. Now, that's a triggering statement to make. I know that there's probably going to be some nice guys that come across this video. I know I'm not saying that you're not a good person, but sometimes being good and being pure as a virtue, or especially your front page, it's kind of just one of those things where, you know, be a decent human being. That's a given. That should always be, you know, in our repertoire is just, you know, not being a complete jerk. But when your whole, you know, thing is niceness and goodness, all I gotta say is you're kind of robbing yourself of the depth you could be developing of yourself that would make you intriguing to more potential partners in the dating realm. But you're also just doing society a favor because sometimes the nice guy, quote unquote, usually when they get their way, they stop being nice. And then it turns out that maybe sometimes they could be really net negatives on society if they're not really at their heart nice people or good people. Because the one thing I always go along with, that one person that has to sit there and type online about how good of a person he or she is, that person's hiding something like straight up. I actually trust myself around people who are openly mean a little bit rather than people who are putting on a smile, because now having the life experience I did, it moves to a completely different sphere. But let me tell you a story to put this into perspective, because this is one that really brings up. Because I was, like I said, the nice guy in high school, and then relatively I was the nice guy in college too. And, you know, I had some successful relationships and not so successful relationship. We live and we move on. Now, granted, I never went to the extent that Gary did in this movie, where he completely just goes all out for this girl and goes above and beyond even after she completely made a mistake herself. And you know what? He completely cleans up not just for her, but his friend. And sometimes, you know, when you don't let people figure it out by themselves, you know, you can't just keep helping someone whenever they're about to fall, because then when they need to pick themselves up, you're not doing them a favor. But I remember I had some other friends who were quote-unquote nice guys, and one in particular. Now, he grew up in a really privileged household. His dad gave him a lot of stuff, like the new iPhone, the new Xbox, the new Fitbit, even though he doesn't really work out at all or have any fitness goals. I have fitness goals and I work out. I don't think I've ever once wanted to buy a Fitbit to monitor the amount of calories I'm burning or anything. I'm just putting in raw work. I don't need anything to really keep track of all that stuff for the most part. No offense to those of you who do. That's just the way I honestly see it. But I remember when we were in college, I had a relationship fall through, and it was one that I was actually planning on turning into an engagement once I graduated. But, you know, I had to deal with that by myself. So I had the bad habit of, again, like Gary was, picking up everybody else's problems along with my own and, you know, wondering why I always felt empty-handed. So I get a call because this nice guy friend of mine actually took a vacation to a foreign country, and he didn't like that there. Now, instead of calmly telling his parents, hey, I don't want to, I'm just going to tough out the rest of the semester, and then I'm probably going to come home. Nope, he threatens to, unalive himself unless he was brought on a trip back. Now, me in my default state at the time was quite worried because they put him in a mental hospital for a little bit, and then he got out of the mental hospital and then got treated to a nice, luxurious dinner. And a lot of this actually really just stemmed from his insecurity of not being really rocking with the females, not just in high school, but he really struggled in college. So you could tell that this guy's confidence was at an all-time low, and every time he would open up his mouth, it always went back to dating. So this guy had that way far gone of desperation look. And you know what? I tried introducing him to friends. I tried all that. But every now and again, he would usually make it about him. He would act like a jerk at the parties, like he was the big dog. And he would basically let it be known that whenever I invited him to these parties, he was there to kind of stepping stone me and act like, I owed him something, or I had to walk on eggshells around him, where he can continue to go around and walk around like a bad boy. All the while, which, let's keep in mind, he's making everybody cringe. I'm not even mad that he's stepping stoning me at this point. I'm just mad that I brought a friend to a party and he is that poor of a reflection on me. But you know what? I would try to explain this to him and everything like that. And, his jerky behavior became way more jerky, if you know what I'm talking about. Like complete, flat out beef jerky. So I would honestly tell him how I felt, that, yeah, you're kind of taking advantage and I'm being nice to you out of pity, and the way you're repaying me is not good at all. And I don't think that, this should be repayment for anybody. Because honestly, if someone went that far and above and beyond for me, I honestly would never take advantage of them like that. I would always try to, be a good reflection of them. It's just the kind of person I am. Now, and I hate to gloat. I try not to consider myself a nice guy, but I try to be kind, not nice, like not pushover-ish, but I try to use my life experience and my failures to try to at least help some other people too, and, pass it forward. And I'm not saying it, to me be mean, but sometimes introducing them to reality with a little bit of sugarcoating could help it go down a little bit, and it's there to help them. But obviously, this kid who had everything handed to him and would always, threaten to something like that because he didn't get his way, decided to call me a victim with a victim's mindset. And that was kind of like the end all be all. Now, I'm not going to get into too much of the story, but eventually we stopped hanging out right after that conversation, because I actually just unfiltered told him what I really thought about him. He made himself out to be the victim. We met up a couple times with mutual friends, and I just kind of went out of my way to kind of shut him down and everything like that, and really make him uncomfortable to be around the group, because honestly, I had had enough. I had reached a breaking point of my own. And then, push comes to shove. One of my friends in the future has a run-in with this guy, and we were actually laughing because he told me a story about him. It was basically just him embarrassing himself yet again in front of everybody. So, long story short, I kind of gave myself a bit of a benefit of doubt and said, you know what? I am not going to think that any of that was my fault. He was a fake nice guy, which, unfortunately becomes more and more nice guys, quote unquote. Now, I'm not saying that there's not some genuinely nice, good, kind people that do good for the world. And, I'm going to say it. It's not too much to expect the world to return that kindness, but sometimes that is expecting a little too much of people, especially, when it comes to the fake nice guys who put on nice and victim and feel sorry for me as their main thing. Sometimes helping those people could be like, playing with fire, because you're going to get burned. Now, obviously, Gary wasn't as far gone as the example I just gave in this movie, but it really got me thinking about the whole nice guy trope, and at least my experience with the nice guy thing. And you know what? Because I know that there's a lot of people who are going to come into this world with a nice guy's mentality, and it's not necessarily a selfish or that, but usually at a young age, we're taught to do good, to do the heroes thing, to serve our communities. And the best, lesson that comes with that, though, which, kind of hurts, not just in dating, but like in friendships and stuff like that. People take advantage of that niceness. And you know what? The harsh truth is they don't have to reciprocate. Now, the good news is when you're that nice and you're not appreciated, you can dial back on that niceness and put more of that energy towards yourself. I guarantee you the only people that are going to have a problem with it are the ones that benefited from you not having any boundaries and you being a doormat, because some people do need to be there. But sometimes you need to test the waters a little bit, in my honest opinion. And that's just what I'm gonna say. This is my strategy, because I really want to know who is there genuinely for my presence or who can gain something from me. And sometimes I ask myself, what is it that this person is gaining by hanging out with me? Is it me per se, or is it conditional? And sometimes what I do, I've taken away those conditions, and not just in dating, but in all sorts of relationships, business relationships, friendships, relationships with family. And you'll see how hard they flip, and then you start to second guess it and say, okay, you're convenient for them in this way, and it says something more about them. And, when I go back, I'm going to circle back a little bit and talk about that, how when niceness is your whole personality, there's really not a whole lot of depth except you're nice. You got to use that energy to find some depth, to find your defining person. Because, let's say you're some guy named Dave who's really, really nice. And then you use that energy to discover music and play guitar, or you start reading books or find interest in literature and start writing, or, go for a computer science degree, whether you think that's useful or not. You basically have some stuff to your, story that when you go into the dating pool and everything like that, then you can actually put something together and, have an authentic personality to share. And you know what that does is that makes you more in line to have more potential partners or more dating prospects, and not fall in love with the idea you place on somebody, but actually get to know people and read relationships like their books from start to finish to see this is how it started, this is kind of how it went. And, not all those storybooks are going to turn out nicely, just especially like this movie that I just watched. It was not a good ending for Gary at all. And, side note on that, the way I see the post thing going, maybe in a way they are going to be friendly in the future. Maybe he comes back to just say, I expected a little too much. And helping her clean up her mess with what his friend did at the end, that might just be a one-off thing. But after all, she did, try to set him up with her friend too, probably because, I don't think she was really trying to string him along at all. I think a lot of it was him just doing it to himself. Kind of like 500 Days of Summer, where if you watch the movie again, he ignores all the warning signs where they say, hey, I don't want a relationship or anything, and he continues to ignore it because it doesn't fit in his bubble. So it's kind of like one of those things, if you watch it again, you see that. But that's the thing is, what a lot of nice guys do, and I'm going to probably finish up with this after spewing a whole lot of, stuff. When you have this idea of a person and you project it onto them and they don't live up to that projection, then you could kind of be toxic, and then that's not such a nice thing, because you're not asking this person who they really are. You're putting a projection out there and you're morphing it to them. One, you're hurting yourself, you're lying to yourself, and then you're, you don't want to accept the reality that maybe you're not as compatible with this person as you think. And especially when we're younger, our hormones can trick us in all sorts of ways and get us to see all sorts of things that aren't true. But I guarantee you, every moment you waste lying to yourself, you could be spending trying to find the person that is authentically actually for you and actually has interest in you, so you don't keep torturing yourself. But that is a lot of advice that I have for a lot of quote unquote nice people or good people or nice guys, whatever you want to say. And if you are a fake nice person where you just use it to try to get your way, shame on you. But to all the good, nice people, it's not that I don't value you guys. I really do. In fact, I wish that there were more good-natured people than there are nasty-natured people in society, not necessarily just in the dating realm, but all over. I think we could benefit from a whole lot of people with integrity, not necessarily allowing your kindness to become weakness, but being kind enough to where doing the right thing is your default until someone gives you a reason not to, or you know what I'm saying. But sometimes I feel like this can help a lot of nice people, because if I continue to allow them to live in that delusion of the nice guy, there is a chance that those people can come out very bitter, and not just come out hurt and have a hero's retelling where they build themselves up, but some people can just become bitter and become villains. And that could mean the difference between actually having a hero who turned some bad news into something good, or a villain who let, lies destroy them and turn them into something that maybe their younger selves wouldn't be too excited to see. But that's what I gotta say. Peace out. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.